Welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Brandon, and today we are doing Goblin Slayer. This one's going to be more of a budget deck Goblin Slayer, so we're looking more towards the yellow-red. This deck's going to be a little memey, but I think it's fun to play because of the potential of this deck. The deck has a very low floor, but also a very high ceiling, so it's great fun. So let's just kind of jump right in. Starting off, we have Mana of Few Words, Goblin Slayer. At the beginning of your Encore step, you can pay the, if there's not another character rested, you can pay the cost to, which is clock yourself to rest the card. So try and help guarantee characters on field. Using this card, you can also use this as an opportunity to kind of get to level 1 first. Hitting level 1 first is really helpful for this deck, so having an effect like that allows you to get there quicker. Next up, we have Effective Words, High Elf Archer. Act, rest this card, choose one of your other characters, and that character gets plus 50 on their power till end of turn. A good way to help characters get reverses, which is going to be helpful for our level 1 combo. Next up, we have Spirited Dreams, Dwarf Shaman. During your turn, all of your other order characters get 500 power, so power boost. And when it's placed from hand to stage, you mill the top 2. If all are order characters, so if they're characters, choose one level 3 or lower in your opponent's backstage. That opponent cannot stand that character during their next stand phase. So it's a good way to hit brainstormers and other plussing engines so your opponent can't plus as effectively, allowing you to be able to help dictate the terms of the game. Next up, we have Cherished Flavor Lizard Priest. So when placed on stage, top 2 cards, your deck to your waiting room. If there's a climax, it gets plus 2 soul. So a great way to soul rush early, as well as when it's placed on stage, you may choose a card in your hand and put it into your stock. So that's another good way to be able to get stock early, which is going to be really helpful for level 1. And we have our Brainstormer of the deck. It also comes with a interesting trigger check. So if one of your characters triggers either the shot combos, you can choose either the Dwarf Shaman or the level 3 Lizard Priest and return it to your hand. Fantastic. It is essentially free salvage off of triggering. The Brainstorm, pay 1, rest 2 of your characters. Flip over the top 6 cards of your deck and put them to your waiting room. If there is a shot trigger, choose 1 character in your waiting room and return it to your hand. So unlike most Brainstormers, this one only allows you to salvage 1 if you trigger a climax. If you trigger multiple climaxes, you still only salvage 1. However, it allows you to also hypermill a little bit more. That kind of mill 6. This deck runs both of the shot triggers, so if you hit just one climax, you're going to be hitting the shot trigger, so that'll help. Really, you're using this for the salvage more than anything else, off of triggering shot. This is when we jump to level 1. Level 1, we're using the Pride of an Elf, High Elf Archer. There's a continuous effect with this card that actually comes into play with this deck. You can't play event cards with the same name more than once per turn, so that's actually really important. We'll get to that, why that's important in just a few minutes. But we'll keep that in mind. The actual Climax Combo, on reverse, the climax is in the climax area, top 3 cards of your waiting room to your deck. And you get to salvage based on the number of trigger icons you put in there. So if you're milling out 3 soul icons, then you can get 3 characters back into hand, which is awesome. And it's going to be helpful to replenish that hand to help set you up for later. Worthy to note with the Climax 6,000 power, so it's going to be a little bit on the low side, so that's why hitting level 1 first is going to be really helpful for this effect. Alongside that, also another way to get the power for the reverses, you have the Generous Heavy Drinker Dwarf Shaman. When played, you can power pump one of your characters 1,500 power till end of turn, and if this one triggers a shot, you also may salvage 1. This one is non-specific of character. So if this character triggers the shot climax with the Brainstormer in the backfield, you're salvaging 2 off of the 1 trigger. You're helping to stack potential benefits all in one. The real meme of the deck, we have the 1/1 event Dice, which allows you to, 1, put this card into memory, 2, when it's in memory, at the start of your main phase, so you draw, you clock. If you do clock, you draw the 2, and then main phase happens. At the start of your main phase, if this card is in your memory, all players reveal the top card of their deck. If it's a 0, you have to pay out a stock, so you lose an additional stock. However, if both cards are level 3, you get to choose up to 4 cards in your waiting room and put them into your stock. If it's neither of those things, nothing happens. So if you literally high roll and both you and your opponent have level 3, 4 cards into stock for just going into your main phase with this in memory. Now, if you have multiple dice in memory, that's multiple iterations of 4, because you're revealing the same card on top. If you can get all 4 of these into memory, you're looking at, if you reveal level 3, potentially putting up to 16 cards from your waiting room into stock on that turn, which is fantastic. Now, the likelihood of that happening, in this deck, you're running quite a bit of the level 3s, so you're really banking on your opponent and what your opponent has for the level 3 game. Because of this card, you want to make sure you have cards in waiting room whenever it gets to your turn. You can also low roll. So if you both had 0s and you're losing, potentially if you had 4 in there, 4 stock. So yes, it has a heavy price to pay, but so do all kind of medium effects. If it hits once, it's worth it. But because it's an event, especially if you get to level 1 first and you have several of these in hand, you're going to want to play them first before you play your level 1 combo on the field. So that way you can use up all of your events and then force your opponent to be limited to 1 event. You don't want to neg yourself before you even get started. So just kind of keep an eye on that. That is important to note as you're going through. And then we move on to level 2. We have it's a 2-1 assist. Assists level times 500. On play, you can look up the 2 cards at the top of your deck and then put them back in the original order, so you can kind of look and see what your triggers are going to be. And well as you can look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck and then put them back in the original order, so you know what the first 2 cards of their deck are going to be. So you can kind of help align your attacks appropriately. Next up, we have the early play Burdened by Fate Goblin Slayer. Early play condition, 4 or more characters on field. During your turn, it gets power based off of your other characters on field. You can also then, when it's placed on stage, discard a card to search for 1 event, aka dice. Reveal it to your opponent, shuffle the deck, put it in your hand, so you can basically turn around and play it. It's another way to help guarantee getting dice in there to prepare you for your endgame, because your endgame wants you to have dice. Next up, we have the Bursting with Vigor Cowgirl. Again, early play condition, 2 or less climaxes in waiting room. On play, look it up to X cards. X is the number of characters you have. Choose 1 from among them, put the rest in the waiting room. So adding a card on play, and when your other character is attacked, you get to power pump to something else. Great card to have. Next up, we have the finisher of the deck, the Rapid Firing of Pebbles Dwarf Shaman. This one is the card that you're looking for. This is what you want to do. So when this card is placed, draw up to 2 cards, choose 1, put the other one in the waiting room, so allowing you to make sure you're drawing into your climax. Climax Combo, you pay 4, and if you do, not only does it get power, but you put the top 5 cards of your deck into your waiting room and deal damage equal to the number of triggers that you reveal in instances of 1. So, for example, if you reveal all 5 cards to have triggers, you're dealing 1 damage 5 times. With dice, because you're allowed to choose the cards you're putting into stock, you can use that to filter your deck of cards that don't have soul triggers. So if you're able to refresh after a dice effect, your deck can just about be completely filled with soul triggers, especially if you're able to hit all 4 dice. When you deal this attack, not only do you have the stock for the attack, but you also have the triggers, so you're dealing 1 damage 5 times, almost guaranteed that way. Now, do this multiple times, because, realistically, if you're able to get 16 stock in there, you can tri-field this and do it 3 times. Dwarf Shaman, dealing 1 15 times, as well as its normal swings. That is a deadly amount of damage. You could destroy your opponent from 2-0 with that kind of damage output. So one of the things that you really want to do with this deck. The other level 3 that we have the Banisher of Heresy Lizard Priest. On play, you can heal, and then when the climax is placed, you can choose Dwarf Shaman, put it on any position of your stage. You have to be level 3 for that to happen. However, if dice doesn't hit, and the luck is not running in your favor today, it allows you to have this card and Dwarf Shaman on the field, so you have more of a full field to swing for damage. So you can try to save as much stock as possible to be able to swing for win. Next up, we have our climaxes. Colorful Adventures for the level 1 combo, and then Friends to Battle Alongside With for the level 3 combo. Both shot triggers, helping to push damage. As kind of recap, the objective of this deck, get the dice into memory for the fantastic memes to prepare for the end game of just burning with Dwarf Shaman. On a competitive level, take it to locals. The deck relies on multiple instances of dice for the end game to be truly effective. Consistency is not a key component of this deck. You really want to high roll in order to do well. So it's very fun to take to locals for that one guy that maybe is just a little too high and mighty, and you bring this out and just absolutely destroy them. You could also run into having no stock at the end game if dice low rolls. That's worth noting. As we look at pricing for this deck, this is budget deck. These are the jktcg.com prices, and these are the numbers of the deck to run it in. So yeah, this has been the budget deck for Goblin Slayer. I wish you the best of luck. May the dice be in your favor, and be sure to meme out against your opponents. We'll have a gameplay video of this, so you can watch this monstrosity in action on Thursday, and then next week we will have a clock talk. But until then, have a good one, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.